Paving this shit crank.
When it gets jammed, because I'm in IT and I can understand the code behind it, I had to literally help them. I'm like, you have to go do this and do that. And that's when they kind of knew. So I could clearly tell most of these people didn't have enough training and they were just monotonously doing their job. And whether it was intentional or not, again, I cannot witness to that. I can only tell what I was there for. And again, I just want to tell everybody here that when we became a poll challenger, our intent was not to get into fights with anybody. I'm an immigrant, and this country gave me a platform to be what I am today. I run a successful IT business. I'm one of the fastest 50 growing companies in America. And I really love this country. When I became a citizen of this country, it was a choice I made. I had to give up my Indian citizenship to become a US citizen. It's a choice we all make. That's a country we grew up in, but this is a country we chose to live. So we just have a lot of respect for this country. Putting ourselves out here, it's not fun. Trying to get our names out there, trying to just kind of intimidate us. You have to understand, coming to a country where we have nobody and then start our life here, it takes a lot of courage. So we do have courage. And especially for me to do this, it's really scary. It was very scary because I am a very private person. I have no social media accounts. I just like to live a very private life. But I knew what was at stake from what I witnessed at TCF, and my heart broke because I had a lot of respect. I still have a lot of respect for this country, and I don't believe in racism as like the mainstream media narrative. This country has given me a lot, and I'm very thankful for it. So today when I'm doing this, it's not because I'm trying to say who's good or who's bad. I'm just saying that this needs to be fixed. In a country like India, we have a national identification card, without which we cannot vote. When we come into this country, we have a retina scan, we have fingerprints, everything, when we're entering into this country through a border. How is that a vote, which is the single most important thing any person can do, is actually being cast without an ID, without any kind of oversight, and those ballots getting duplicated without an oversight, and all of this fraud that was happening, it was heartbreaking. So that's why I decided to put myself here. Another thing that I noticed is that there were Democratic challengers there. I don't even call them challengers. They were agitators. They were only there with one purpose. When GOP people or nonpartisan people signed up, we were only trying to ensure that there was integrity. Whereas when Democratic challengers signed up, their only purpose there was to intimidate the GOP people and get them out. So that was what was happening on the 4th when I got on the floor. I didn't have my GOP tag on, so automatically I was assumed to be a Democrat. And I have seen some women who came to me and said, let's get these MFs out. And she was singing that song. And for me, I don't listen to secular music, and these days you can't even tell what is cussing and what is a song. So I thought maybe she was really singing a song. But then when I saw that she was targeting white male Republicans, accusing them of something like your mask slipped, you were not 6 feet away, so you need to go out, and your phone was out, and they were really intimidating all these white people. And I put myself out there, tried to help them, saying, why are you getting them in trouble? And they said, why are you taking their side? Then I showed my GOP tag, and then she said to me that I'm on the wrong side because I had a GOP tag on. I was literally shocked that somebody can judge me because of my political affiliation and say whether or not I'm on the right side or wrong side. I can think for myself. But then at that point, I saw that Republicans were getting escorted, and so many people got escorted that we became pretty scarce. We couldn't even man, we had only one person manning 4 or 5 tables because we were so low on numbers, and there were so many Democratic challengers there. So I just went to Election Integrity Fund and got my nonpartisan tag. And the reason I did that was not because I was not there for my party or trying to do something on behalf of my party. I'm just trying to ensure that the right thing is being done. So when I got the nonpartisan tag, at the counting board, the poll workers were very respectful because of my nonpartisan tag. But when I had the GOP tag, the first thing they said is 6 feet. You know the rule or you will be sent out. And I'm like, when I had the nonpartisan tag, a lot of rules didn't apply to me. So that just told me that, those poll workers, the Democratic challengers, ACLU, and so many other people that were there, their only job there was to block the GOP challengers from doing their job. And when I was with the nonpartisan tag and talking to Democratic challengers, most of them didn't even know what to challenge in a ballot. When I asked them a question, when I was asking supervisor a question, those people were literally confused because they didn't even know what I was asking. And then when I asked one lady, where did you get trained? She said, trained for what? Because they didn't know what they were there for. Their only job, I could tell there, was to block the GOP people from challenging or intimidate them and get them out.
And did you have something to say also about your experience?
Yeah, so because I was a volunteer, I came in for my training around 9:30 p.m. at the TCF Center. 10 o'clock, we went down to the floor. I was stationed by the center of the room. The center of the room, they have all the boxes lined up, and then they have one table full of the duplicate ballots. As I'm sure you're all familiar with duplicate ballots, so they have a table for duplicate ballots. Throughout the entire night, many employees were conducting theft of duplicate ballots. So they would come up to the table of duplicate ballots, grab 3 or 4 duplicate ballots, run back to their table, give one to another person at another table, and never complete the duplicate process. They would stash the ballots under boxes, and I would have to stand there for about 5 minutes and just wait for a duplicate process, and they would just look at me, and it was never, ever completed. So that happened throughout the entire night. Then around 4:30 a.m., we had an announcement that a new shipment of ballots were arriving, and these boxes of ballots were brought in by Mr. Baxter himself at 4:30 a.m. from the rear of the room. So I personally witnessed Mr. Baxter carrying boxes from the rear of the basement of the TCF Center into the tables. So each box, I approximate 600 ballots. And it was like a full, what you have to know is that these tables, there's about 7 tables. They were 10-foot tables each. Every table was full of boxes of ballots. It's not tens of thousands or 20,000s. I approximate 50,000 ballots were brought in. Now, were all of those ballots brought in from the rear entrance to the TCF Center? I don't know. They were brought in from the TCF Center, but there was a lot more than just the ones that were brought in from the rear entrance to the TCF Center. And I'm talking, this is the 6 a.m., this is when we're starting at 6 a.m., the 4:30, 5 a.m. It was 50,000 ballots on the table, equal to the 2 rounds that we did before. We did a round around 10 p.m. to about 1 a.m., and then 1 a.m. to about 4 a.m., and then the boxes were brought in from the rear around 4:30, then they had the shift change from around 5 to 6. So with the shift change, most of the volunteers were tired at this point. They only expected to be there from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. So 90+% of them left at 5 a.m. I decided to stick around. So they had the shift change. At 6 a.m., Mr. Baxter and his management team got back on the microphone and said, this is what the new shift change, right? The new employees says, this is what democracy is supposed to look like. Right in front of everyone, the whole room cheered. So this is how you know it's a good sign of a violation, that there's an imbalance of poll workers. This is the new shift. Even the first shift before that, I would say the same thing. But this shift, you can tell it's the same, again, another imbalance of poll workers, because the whole room cheered. So based off my sampling of a dozen duplicate ballots from 6 a.m. to about 2 p.m. the next day, because I was doing duplicates, from these duplicate ballots that I observed, none of them were for Trump. None of them. And from the other 2 shifts or 2 rounds that we did earlier, only 1 ballot that I witnessed from a duplicate was for Trump. So I'm talking just a dozen off my sampling from that 1 shift Of 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., none. And throughout the whole night, I only saw one. 3 other challengers around me told me the same thing from their sampling. So, also, we challenged ballots all night. Every challenge was refused. They never carried it out. They never issued challenge ballots. There's no track, no remedy, no records, no recording of any challenge ballots the entire night. So we challenged. Poll workers changed duplicate ballots to straight Democrat ticket. So, for example, it would be like a mixed ticket, bubbles filled in everywhere. I witnessed employees taking their pen and filling in the Democrat straight ticket when it's not. And so you're going to have other people testify that when it goes to adjudication that they see 2 different parties filled in. And then 9 times out of 10, you're also going to have testimony too that says that the employees were saying it should go to the Democrats. That's true. Because there's 200 tables, 150 tables, however many tables there are, 5 employees per table, and they all have pens. And I witnessed them writing a ticket for the straight Democrat ticket. So I also witnessed like duplicates of duplicate ballots, which was very strange to me. We were making a duplicate, take it back to the tabulator, and again, make another duplicate of the duplicate. I personally asked the employees, hey, why are we making, first verify, is this a duplicate of a duplicate? They said yes. I said, why? This is the tabulator says unknown reasons. Okay. So, and then I also at the tabulators did see the double counting on the jams. I saw that several times. They would take the ballots that were just scanned and just rescan them again once there would be a jam. And then around 2 p.m., I leave the room for about 5 minutes to grab a snack because they're saying, snacks are coming in, go grab a snack, go ahead. I leave the room 2 p.m. The minute I leave the room, they block out the whole room with coverings. They prohibited access back in for me, and they said it's because we're exceeding COVID capacity. Now I'm going to wrap up with this. Mind you, the entire night, this room was slammed. It looked like the New York Stock Exchange on its busiest day. And then at 2 p.m. the next day, after 70% of the employees have already finished their work, they left the room, now they're emplacing the exceeded COVID capacity rules, which was pure discrimination.
All right, thank you.
I just have to add one thing to this, the ballots that were an issue. I was at table 57 where I said that I saw a stack of ballots which had a sticky note on it saying not in EPB/S. They didn't know what that meant, but it didn't take me long to figure out why it was saying, what it meant. It is when they would scan a ballot, nothing would come on the system. So they would manually enter these. And that's when I figured out that they were not even referring to the poll book. So it is EPB/S, meaning election poll book or system. So none of these details were in either of those. And the thing that when I started writing down the ballot numbers and the last names of the person of the ballot that had the name on that ballot, they were all in sequence. These are absentee ballots, mail-in ballots. They cannot be in sequence. 2232 cannot have 2233 next to it because if they're mailed in, they come in all different numbers. And when I started noticing that these numbers are almost next to each other, like one or the other was in the middle, but then they were almost next to each other, my antennas went up. That's exactly when I thought something is not right here. Then I asked the supervisor. There was not even a date on those envelopes. It said November 0-2020. There was no second number there. Then I said, what is the date on this one? Then they got really mad at me. They said, you're not letting us do our job. You're disturbing us. And at that point, because we really don't want to be kicked out, so we were just kind of not challenging anything because we want to still stay in the room because we barely had anybody. Not only that, the sequence ballot numbers were all from the same area, like the Goddard Street in the downtown Detroit. Goddard Street, sequential ballots, signatures were all alike. They had no date stamp. It said it was empty after 0. There was no third or second or first or nothing. And none of them were coming up in the system. They were all being entered manually. They even knew that none of these details would even be in the poll book or in the system.
All right. Well, with that, thank you both for your testimony. We're going to go on to questions now. I'll start with Representative Steve Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. I think it's the most compelling testimony we've had tonight. You talked about the 6-foot rule, people being kicked out for that. There was a court case prior to the election dealing with this and saying that you had to allow a poll challenger to break that 6-foot rule to verify information. All right, I've got pretty good eyesight myself. I can't see someone's written address from 6 feet away. So the court case made it very clear that they did have to allow that. Now, when you're not challenging, you have to keep your 6 feet. Were people allowed to break the 6-foot rule to challenge? And then my second part, when these Republican challengers were kicked out, were they allowed to be replaced by another one? Because it was very evident that there was plenty of other possible Republican challengers there. Were they replaced by one or not?
I'll take the first, you can take the second. The first one, when you said the 6-foot rule, we were in fact given a paper with these rules saying that we can break the 6-foot rule when we have to challenge a ballot. We even had the printed paper with us, and when we would show it to the supervisor, he'd say, we are enforcing the rules that we were given. That's the rule your team that sent you gave you. We don't have to abide by it because that does not apply to us. And we have to keep low profile. You have to understand if we don't want to be kicked out. If we don't want to, I may not be because I'm brown. But all I'm saying is, but that was my trump card that I used all day. But then the thing is, that's not a privilege for a white person. So white people, I could see, were not even daring to ask a question because if they were even a little bit louder, they would say, you're disturbing them, so they need to get out. And you have to understand the the poll workers were ganging up with Democrats. They were all in on the same team, and the only people that are being isolated are the Republican, white male Republicans. So that's
Please.
racism. If people ask me, was I ever treated unfairly, I would say rarely. Come to India, you will know what racism is. But here, no, I've been treated with a lot of respect. Now I see white people are being treated as, so much worse than, I was ever treated. So those people were not able to really loudly challenge because they will get kicked out. They did not want to abide by that rule where we can break that 6-foot rule to challenge a ballot because they didn't want to listen to what we had to say.
As per the second question, no.
They were not being replaced.
Republicans
Once
were
you're
not
out, you're
replaced.
out,
So when a
you can't-
Republican challenger was escorted out, they were not allowed to be replaced by another one.
The only ones welcomed in were the media, no challengers from our side. But I would say there was two separate systems. There was our systems where we were exceeded COVID capacity, fall in line, follow the rules, and then there was the friendly welcoming. Oh, you're the media, come on in. Oh, who are you with? You're with them, come on in.
Another thing I also have to say is when the GOP people were getting escorted out with or without handcuffs, every poll worker and all Democrats stood and clapped like it was some kind of, they all won a lottery ticket. And that is exactly when I decided I'm going to do this because that was heartbreaking because these people were doing a job, a volunteer job. They were not getting paid. They all were leaving their work to be here for their country to ensure election integrity. And they were treated like criminals, and that's not fair.
Representative LeGrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could just ask you the same question I asked the last witnesses. When did you, if you file an affidavit here, or when did you first make Trump's lawyers, when did you give them this story substantially?
I didn't meet any Trump lawyers because I was working for Election Integrity Fund. I gave my affidavit the same day on November 4th.
Okay, so you...
I don't know what happened with those affidavits, and I never met anybody from Trump team until, not even now. I haven't even met anybody yet.
Okay, you filed... So you're saying you filed an affidavit on this on November 4th?
November 4th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
I, in fact,
Representative.
gave all the ballot numbers, the last names, the table number, everything that I observed the same day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative LeGrand. Next, we'll go to Representative Riley.
Thank you. I just wanted to try to understand what this was like when somebody tried to challenge a ballot. So you would say I challenge a ballot, then what would happen after that? What was a series of events?
Even before the supervisor or the poll worker would respond to the challenge, the Democrats would just pounce and say, "What are you challenging?" And then when we try to give them what was the basis for challenge, like as I said, they had no clue because they were not trained. Their only training was to block the GOP people. So when we would say this is what we are challenging, they'd be like, they're clueless, obviously. And then the poll workers, they would be hostile. And they're like, we are not going to stop what we're doing. If you have a problem, you go take it up with the supervisors. They were all in on it together, so nobody was going to listen to it. Not a single challenge was ever entered. And this was the same thing happening.
So then if you went to the supervisor, he would not do anything?
No, nobody would do anything.
So in addition to that, thank you. In addition to that, when there was no Democrat challenger, which I witnessed in the minority of times, I would make a challenge and the head of the table would say, you know, what's wrong? And I would say, this is wrong. And they say, no, that's not wrong. And I said, no, I'm challenging it. So, I mean, for example, just one example is I challenge you for filling in the Democrat straight ticket. Is that, can I challenge that? No, it's not a challenge. No, document, just push it through. That's what they did.
Oh, thank you.
Representative C.A. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, please indulge me. As a woman from the city of Detroit, a woman who has lived, I'm talking about me now, who has lived in the city of Detroit all of my 62 years, and having spoken with many, and by the way, thank you, having spoken with many people who worked the TCF or TFC. TCF.
All right, let's let Representative Johnson continue. And please get to your question, Representative.
I will. So my question really to you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to repeat it again. These people, our guests, are sharing information, just sharing and sharing and speaking and speaking. No one is under oath. The world is watching us right now, and the world is watching right now, and there are one person after another who's testifying or who's making allegations, because that's exactly what they are, allegations of wrongdoing in the city of Detroit. I wonder, and I'm going to ask you the question, did you see any cameras at the TCF Center? All right, so.
And Representative, I just want to remind you, I think it was the purpose of today's hearing to hear from people across Michigan who witnessed things at the TCF Center. That's why we're here.
Well, you know,
So-
here, and I'm not going to argue
Representative,
with you
that's
about
why
that.
we're here. So
Okay, so
I
they're
think
here, but they're
that's-
taking so much time, and I see no Detroiters. There is one Detroiter. Stop that.
Please continue, Representative.
And there is one Detroiter, but I have many emails. Since there's no one who you have in this room to represent Detroiters, except a couple of us in this room, I have emails from Detroiters. We've taken, what, 2
Representative,
hours?
Did you have a question? I'm willing. Please stop yelling.
We
People
need
in the
to-
audience, let me handle this. Representative, listen, we've had hearings in the past, as you know. We'll have more hearings. Today, we've invited Mr. Giuliani, and Mr. Giuliani has brought forward witnesses that he says have firsthand knowledge of fraud. That's what we are doing today.
And
you wanna
if
talk
we
about other
want to
hearings,
find out if,
please let me finish.
yes.
All right. So if you want to do Other hearings, we're doing more hearings, but today we're here to hear from these people. So do you have a question for these witnesses?
No,
ma'am?
I have some concerns,
All right. Well,
many
we-
concerns, and I want to just
I'm gonna
share
rule
with
you
you
out of order,
what
all right?
the
Out
concerns
of order. Do you have a
are.
point of order?
I'm sorry.
Do you have a point of order?
Yes.
What is your point of order?
Point of order is to have them under oath.
You're out of order. As I've said, this is something that is not done here in this state. It's really only.
It may not be done under the state,
This
but
is
you're
not a
allowing
court.
people to come in here and lie, and I know they're lying.
Representative, you're out of order. I've indulged you, but you're out of order, and we're going to move on.
And on behalf of my witnesses, I would like to point out that every single witness we've presented here has sworn an affidavit as to all of these facts.
And so,
Representative, please, I gave you some room there, but we're going to move on. We're going to go
May
now.
I say something, please?
Sure.
If that is what you want me to do, I would do it. And I will still repeat the exact same thing I watched. And you know what? I also want to say one thing. If it is a lie, it may change because a liar has to have a lot of memory power. If it is truth, you can ask me in the middle of the night, it'll still be the same.
All right, I'm going to take this here. Please stop. We're going to move on now to Representative Lefebvre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it very much. Audience members, we're not going to be able to get to the end of this if we continue with interruption. So I would ask a little bit more patience with us. I have two questions, as we have two witnesses. I hope that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
If there are relevant questions, I will let you proceed.
If they're not relevant, Mr. Chairman, please rule me out of order. I would appreciate it. Question number one, as I heard from, could you say your name again?
Hema Kolanagi Reddy.
Hema, thank you.
You want to try that?
I'm going to try it once. I'm not going to try it twice because I got a bad memory.